Right off the bat, today we are going to completely change how you look at your own mind. If you've ever felt just totally overwhelmed by modern social life, I want to immediately validate something for you right out of the gate. That feeling, it is not a flaw, it's not a weakness, and it absolutely doesn't mean you're broken. Actually, it's a direct byproduct of some incredibly unique, highly advanced psychological wiring. Today we're going to unpack exactly why you feel the way you do, and more importantly, how you can use it to your advantage.
Okay, let's dive into this. Here's a question for you. Would you rather fight a bear than attend a crowded concert? I mean, hey, at least the bear doesn't want to make small talk, right? I know, it sounds a bit extreme, but if you internally chose the bear just now, congratulations. Your brain actually just saved you from a psychological nightmare that most people are completely blind to. When you get a text about meeting up at a packed downtown spot, your brain immediately calculates the massive sensory cost of that crowd. It looks at the noise, the lights, the overlapping conversations, and it decides that the sensory bankruptcy just isn't worth the cost of admission.
You know, society has this really bad habit of tossing around labels. If you avoid crowds, you get called antisocial, broken, or boring. But neuroscience, it tells a completely different story. Science literally labels this as high perceptual sensitivity. See, most people's brains come with a built-in spam filter. They walk into a room and automatically delete like 90% of the input. Your brain doesn't do that. It screenshots everything. You aren't broken. Your psychology is just playing chess while everyone else is playing checkers. So here is our roadmap for today. First, we'll look at the psychology of overwhelm. Then, your hidden cognitive superpowers, the self-efficacy secret, the exact steps you can take to build mastery, and finally, protecting your inner sanctuary.
Let's start with section 1, the psychology of overwhelm and why everyday life feels so incredibly loud.
Now, what's really interesting about this slide is that we can see your actual physical hardware. Look at this. Extrovert brains run on dopamine. When they walk into a party, their brains throw a literal dopamine parade. They crave that external stimulation. But if you have an introverted or highly sensitive brain, your system runs on a completely different chemical called acetylcholine. This neurotransmitter rewards internal focus, deep thinking, and solitude. Plus, neuroscientists have found that introverted brains actually have thicker gray matter in the prefrontal cortex. That's the area responsible for complex planning. You are physically wired for deep introspection.
And having this thick, highly active processor explains so much of your daily frustration, like constantly forgetting names. It's not because you're rude. It's explained by something called the Baker-Baker paradox. If I tell you someone is a baker by trade, your brain lights up with deep associations: bread, flour, waking up early. But if I tell you their name is Baker, well, it's semantically empty. It means nothing. Because your brain is already processing an 8K IMAX sensory experience of social cues, tone, and body language, it simply drops that rootless, meaningless sound. You don't have a bad memory, your brain is just ruthlessly prioritizing meaningful data.
And it's not just physical data you're absorbing either. You can take a huge sigh of relief here, because you aren't just overly anxious. You are, effectively, an emotional Wi-Fi router. You have mirror neurons on steroids. When you spend an hour in a crowd, you aren't just observing emotions, you are downloading them. You accidentally absorb the stress, anxiety, and chaos of 300 people all at once. No wonder you need 3 business days to recover from a 2-hour event, right? Which brings us to section 2, your hidden cognitive superpowers and the amazing evolutionary advantage of your wiring. Because here's the wild part. The very traits that cause you so much stress actually make up what psychologists call a post-traumatic growth toolkit. People who grew up in high-contingency environments, like trauma survivors or exennials who bridged the gap between rotary phones and the first iPhone, developed incredible adaptability. Because you had to predict outcomes to stay safe, you became aggressively empathetic and exceptional at complex problem-solving. You experienced deep encoding of information because you had to learn things the hard way. All of this gives you a heightened emotional intelligence. You don't just see a room, you read the emotional temperature of it.
Let's move right along to section 3, the self-efficacy secret, the psychology of people who fix everything.
At the core of a fixer's mindset is this brilliant concept identified by psychologist Albert Bandura. It's called self-efficacy. It's the specific belief that you are entirely capable of handling whatever problem is directly in front of you. So, the crucial point is, this isn't just general optimism. It's definitely not toxic positivity where you just force a smile and say everything is fine. No, it is a very specific, learned relationship with uncertainty. It's that quiet confidence of knowing, hey, I've handled things before, and I can handle this too.
And how do you actually build that belief? Through mastery experiences. Think about the very first time a child tries to fix something. Maybe they wriggle a loose wire and suddenly a broken lamp turns on. That one tiny moment completely rewires how they see themselves. Suddenly, the world isn't just something that happens to them, it's a place they can actively reach into and change. Lifelong agency isn't built through grand, sweeping, heroic gestures. It is built through small, undeniable actions.
Let's move to section 4 and see how this builds into an action plan. The steps to build mastery and your blueprint for unstoppable agency. All right, here is your specific step-by-step toolkit to build a fixer mindset. Step 1, tolerate the ambiguity without needing instant resolution. When a problem hits, your anxiety is going to scream for an immediate fix. Instead, force yourself to sit in the uncomfortable space of not knowing. Just observe the problem. Step 2, create a small mastery experience. Put your hands on the physical world. Tighten a literal screw on a wobbly chair. Organize one single drawer. Reboot the router. Just fix a tiny physical problem. And step 3, shift to an internal locus of control. Take a deep breath and recognize that your specific effort just changed the outcome. By doing this repeatedly, you rewire your nervous system to stop shutting down and start getting curious.
Finally, we have section 5, protecting your inner sanctuary and guarding your newfound peace. Because once you build this agency, you have to protect the environment that recharges you. Psychologist Abraham Maslow framed this perfectly. He said, healthy solitude comes from a place of abundance. You're not running from people, you're running toward yourself. Remember that optimal arousal theory we discussed earlier? You aren't staying home because you're hiding or because you're broken. You're staying home from a place of abundance. You are honoring the fact that your finely tuned high-performance brain requires low-stimulation spaces to restore its incredible energy.
I really want you to embrace this beautiful Japanese concept called hotori. It is the celebration of healthy alone time. It's choosing to exist with yourself as a whole person, not as a broken puzzle piece desperately searching for a matching brick. I highly encourage you to set healthy boundaries using this exact concept. Find genuine joy in small, solo rituals. Have a quiet cup of tea, go for a solo walk, or just sit in a room thinking without feeling the slightest need to perform for an audience. Solitude isn't isolation, it is your liberation.
Which leaves us with this final thought today. You've been holding on so tight for so long. So what would it feel like to finally put your hands on a problem and actually move it? Stop apologizing for your deep, sensitive wiring. You aren't too much. You are exactly what survival required. Utilize your self-efficacy. Start with just one small fix today and watch how it completely transforms your daily life. Thank you so much for joining me on this explainer. Keep building that mastery, protect your peace, and I'll see you next time.